Well, hello everyone. Eric Chappelle, Civil Community Evangelist, and I want to welcome everyone to our webcast today. We're going to be talking about integrated workflows with InfraWorks 360, Civil 3D, and AVT. With me today are Mark Burgess and Nigel Peters, and they'll be handling the bulk of the presentation. But I'm going to kick things off just by talking to you a little bit about our webcast series and our community. If this is your first time here, we've been doing this twice a month since last April, so we're over a year old with this series, and it's been, we're happy to say, growing steadily. We try to shoot for the first and third Wednesdays of the month, but it doesn't always work out. As you'll see, next month we're a little bit off schedule, and this month we're a little bit off schedule, but that's okay. Goals of the series are to really just get you folks, the users of our products, our civil infrastructure products, a little bit closer to the folks who make the products, the product team. And more often than not, we have presenters from our product team. Today we have a mix. Nigel is part of the product team, and Mark is actually part of our industry strategy and marketing team. So we've got a lot of different parts of the company represented today. It's a chance for you to maybe give us some feedback or ask some questions, and I'll get into those details a little more in a slide or two. But as I said, just the overall goal being to bring you guys and our makers of the software closer together so we can ultimately bring you a better product that suits your needs. So I want to let everyone know about our next webcast. It's called Cloudless Collaboration with InfraWorks 360 and Civil 3D. We know that we have a lot of folks out there who need to work on projects where maybe the cloud isn't a good solution for them because maybe they're secure or their clients aren't willing to work in that way. Totally fine. There are lots of options, and Tim and Heiko are going to tell you all about those ways that you can still collaborate, still work as a team, whether it's in Civil 3D or InfraWorks 360. Normally, the first Wednesday of July would be the week prior, but because of the July 4th holiday, we're going to move that back a week to July 13th. So that's the date, July 13th. The time is 12 to 1 Eastern, and watch for information on registering for that webcast in the list that you see down there, the community site, the forum, as well as social media, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you've attended a previous webcast, or obviously if you're attending this one, you actually get on our mailing list, and you'll be emailed the information about the upcoming webcast shortly. So you can watch for that too. But if you're anxious to get signed up, keep checking out the community site and social media for information. Back in April, we've kind of broadened our scope a bit. We used to talk just about InfraWorks 360 on this webcast series, excuse me, but now we do a broader product focus. We're calling this the Civil Product Webcast Series. And our big hero products, as we call them in the infrastructure civil space, are InfraWorks 360 and Civil 3D, but we've also got AVT and Navisworks, and sometimes you can pull in Revit and Recap and whatever happens to be relevant to the topic that we're presenting that day. We're going to talk about those products. So there's something for everyone in the civil space, and today is actually a beautiful example of that because we're going to be talking about InfraWorks and Civil 3D and AVT all in the same topic. I want to bring up a poll, actually a couple of polls that will help us get some information on where you folks are. The first one is, what is your current usage level with InfraWorks 360? And you should be seeing that poll on your screen now. If you could please click the poll to indicate your answer, kind of let us know where you are in your InfraWorks 360 journey. I'll leave that open for a few more seconds. Just over half of you have voted so far, so if you haven't voted yet, please do. I'm looking at the results in real time, and I'm seeing that the winner is I regularly use it on some projects with 30% of the vote. Second place is I've installed it and played with it a few times, and right behind is I've dabbled in it on a few projects. So interesting results. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. Thank you to everyone who voted. And now I also want to do this one. What version of InfraWorks 360 are you using? ranging from the licensed full version of the product to the LT, the one that's included with the suite. Are you running a trial? Maybe you haven't even, maybe you're strictly a Civil 3D user and you're just here because you're curious about the product. But let us know which version of the product you're using. Let's see, 65% of you have voted so far, so if a couple more could go ahead and click on that poll, greatly appreciate it. By the way, the winner, I don't know if you guys can see the results or not, but the winner by a huge margin is the licensed full version. That's 61% of you have indicated that. Next in line is LT, 15%. Haven't installed it yet, 13%, and then the other, just a few answers on that one. All right, I'm going to close that down. Thanks to all who voted. I want to tell you a little bit about our community. Make sure you visit our community site. Right now, this is still the InfraWorks 360 community, but we're actually broadening it out as well. In fact, if you go up there today, you'll see some content on the social hub that mixes in Civil 3D and InfraWorks, and that's going to continue to grow to become a broader civil infrastructure community. So keep your eye on that site. But there's lots of good stuff here. The user forum, the idea station, where you can post ideas of how you want to see the software improved, and it's a community platform where other users can vote on your ideas. You know, you can post an idea up there and email all your friends and say, hey, go vote for this idea because it's really important. We think we need it to be implemented, and lots of other good stuff there. Post a project to the gallery to show everyone what you're working on. Recordings of the webcasts. You know, we've got over a year's worth of webcast recordings posted up on the community site. So if you missed one of the previous webcasts, you can go up there and check that out, and also information on upcoming webcasts. I don't believe we're going to be talking about anything preview or labs today, but in case we do, just understand that we have to put this disclaimer up there that anything in those categories, whether it's a preview feature or a labs feature or something that's going to happen in a future release, anything you see regarding those features is in no way a guarantee that they will actually be delivered, and don't make any purchasing decisions based on those types of discussions. We really encourage questions. We can't open the phone lines because of the size of our group. We're well north of triple digits, so we have a lot of people online. If we opened up the phone lines, it would be a zoo. But there is a questions panel, and I encourage you to use it. I'm going to be watching it. Nigel and Mark will be watching it, depending on who's not presenting at the time. So please post your questions. It makes the presentation that much more interesting. We may save some for the end. We may answer some right in the questions panel, or we may just interrupt whoever's speaking at the time and say, hey, we've got a really good question here. Can we figure this out right now? So please don't be shy. There's no such thing as a bad question. Type it in the questions panel there, and let's get your questions answered. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Mark Burgess. So Mark, I'm going to make you presenter.
Okay.
And you now have the floor. So take it away.
Okay. Hi guys. Okay, I've just got to work out now which screen everything's going to appear on, so just bear with me. Yep, okay.
All right, we're seeing Civil 3D.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and that's not what we're going to be talking about, but I was just trying to make sure that the presentation appears there. Okay. So we're just going to be talking to you about roundabout workflows and how that fits in between InfraWorks 360, Civil 3D, and vehicle tracking. So all three of those products are sort of inherently linked with the roundabout design engine. So it's going to be presented by, I'm going to start off just talking about the InfraWorks side of things, and then I'm going to pass that over to Nigel, who's going to speak a little bit more about the Civil 3D side of things. So my name's Mark. I'm a Sales and Channel Readiness Manager, and I've been here with Autodesk working with various civil solutions for about the last 3 years now. And before that, spent 3 years working for a software developer, actually the company that made vehicle tracking. So I've been working with these kind of solutions for quite a while now. I'm based over in the UK, and generally I'm focused on the AEC industry, but specifically on things that are going on here over in EMEA. So I don't know if Nigel can do a quick introduction. Is he on the line?
Yes, yeah. I'm Nigel Peters. I'm product owner stroke manager for Autodesk Vehicle Tracking. 30 years of civil engineering software development. Like Mark, I'm based in the UK. I've been working on vehicle tracking now for 20 odd years as the lead developer. I also, because of the cross between InfraWorks and civil, I work with or in the InfraWorks team and work with or in the Civil 3D team, depending on which part of it is.
Okay, thank you. So you'll be hearing a little more from Nigel later. Okay, so what's actually happened is that we started to try and make sure the product workflows between various products works a little bit smoother than it has been doing in the past. So in order to do that, we took the Roundabout calculation engine that existed within Autodesk Vehicle Tracking, and we actually sort of built that into InfraWorks and into Civil 3D. So if you're using a copy of Civil 3D 2017 at the moment and you've opened it up, you might have seen the Roundabout module has changed slightly from what it has historically been. So now it looks a lot more like the vehicle tracking Roundabout solution, and we've also put the backend, the calculation engine into InfraWorks 360. So we've still kept the vehicle tracking user interface in Civil 3D, but obviously things look a little different in InfraWorks 360. But the main thing is, because all three products share that common calculation engine, it means that it's very easy to transfer that data between all the different products and the data isn't lost. So we actually have, within InfraWorks at the moment, we only have the British and US design standards that are currently available. But you can, if you were to import your Roundabout design into Civil 3D, which Nigel will show you later, you can then just pick up that Roundabout. Once it's imported, you pick up that corridor model, and then you can just flick it over to one of the other 14 design standards that we have in there from various countries around the world. And we also have a generic design standard available there as well, which you can use as a basis for creating your own custom design standard, or if your country isn't represented by one of the standards that's already in Civil 3D, then you can use that to just create your own quickly and easily. So now, traffic simulation is currently available within InfraWorks, and the reason I'm sort of mentioning this, I'm not really going to be concentrating on the traffic simulation, because that's something that that's been done quite extensively recently in some of these in these webinars. But the whole idea of using a roundabout is to improve traffic flow. So we know that how many times you've been stopped there at a T-junction or a four-way intersection, and you're just there staring at empty lanes in the other direction, just thinking, why couldn't I go? Now, if you had a roundabout there in its place, then you could go. And the roundabouts are definitely there to free up movement and make movement of vehicles through intersections a lot more efficient. So, but the thing is that the way that traffic simulation is done for roundabouts is slightly different to what you might have been seeing in InfraWorks. So the traffic simulation that you're actually doing within InfraWorks is a microsimulation model, and this type of model while it will give you some pretty accurate results, it's more designed for a sort of micro simulation of large areas and multiple intersections and traffic networks rather than individual intersections. So it currently looks at signalized and priority intersections only. However, roundabouts are currently only modeled as unsignalized intersections. But really, if you want to do model roundabouts accurately with detailed analysis, then you're probably going to have to be exporting the geometries to a third-party product to actually get that. And certainly where I come from in the UK, there's Arcady, which is mandatory software for doing those calculations for intersections. So like I said, while what you have in InfraWorks already is not wrong and it's not giving incorrect results, it's normally it's mandatory to use other software which takes into account a lot more of the detail of the geometry of the roads and the entrance and the entrance angles and speeds of the traffic on the actual roundabout itself. So within Civil 3D we don't actually have any traffic simulation itself, but hopefully Nigel will have some time to show you that a little bit later. But on the heads-up displays, which give you some basic information about how traffic is moving through the roundabout and give you some entrance velocities and turn radii and things like that for the fastest paths, then we can see that it actually is generating some of that data, and because it's generated all of the geometric data as well, you can actually export those parameters. It calculates them quickly and easily rather than you having to get out your ruler and do things not quite as efficiently as a computer might, and then certainly a lot slower anyway, and then you can just take that information and export it to whichever traffic analysis package specific for roundabouts you might wish to use. However, built into vehicle tracking is, and I believe it's in Civil 3D as well now, in Civil 3D 2017. That's one of the new features in there. We actually have a dynamic link to Arcady, so you can, as you select your roundabout, you can click to link it to an Arcady model, and Arcady is the software developed by the Transport Research Lab down here in the south of England, and you can actually do those calculations, and as you're editing your roundabout within Civil 3D, you can actually see the traffic flow, the level of service, the queue length and the delay actually all dynamically updating in real time as you're changing the data. All you have to do is just pop into Arcady, will already open a roundabout model for you, and you just have to put in some turn data and everything in there will update in real time as you change the geometry. So it's a live link between the two products, which makes things a lot easier to do, and certainly makes the decision process a lot easier. So you know when you're handing it off to a traffic engineer to do the proper calculations, make sure you didn't miss anything, that whatever you've handed them is likely to be the most optimum design, and saves all that backwards and forwards process you might have with them in the approval process. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at creating an intersection in InfraWorks, maybe having a look at quickly analysing the traffic flow, converting it to a roundabout, and then comparing the traffic flow analysis through there. Then we'll import a roundabout into Civil 3D. I'll hand it over to Nigel at that point, and then he'll take it away, and we'll see how much time we've got to get through all of those tools, and we might or might not have a look at the Arcady at the end. We can always save that for another presentation. Okay, so that's that. So I better bring this over. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have been, well, I suppose we said 30% of you, I believe, were using InfraWorks fairly regularly anyway, but for those of you who might not be too clued up on it, I'll try and go slow and explain everything that I'm doing. So what I've got here, I've got the map of I just created this model here of a city. It's Krakow in Poland, and it's just your sort of average city, and I created it using Model Builder. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be having a look at one of these intersections up here. So we've got the city centre there, and over here we've got the main shopping centre that we can see here, Galeria Krakowska here in our toolbar, and we've got the train station also. So we've got the central train station, and so therefore you can imagine that this intersection here going around the main old part of town might be quite full with everybody going to the shopping centre and the railway place. So let's just have a look at this intersection and see what we can do with it. So at the moment, as we bring in the roads from Model Builder, each of those roads, they're actually just sketch roads. So they're not the design roads, so that means there's no intelligence behind them. They're not conforming to any design standard. But if we want to make a proper intersection out of that, then we need to convert that. So we need to right-click on it and go into the edit mode. And then I can right-click again and convert to a design road. And then we can see the grips have changed slightly here. So we've got a radius on there that we can specify, and I'm going to select on here as well. I need to convert all 4 roads to a design road so it can make a proper intersection. I'll just straighten this up. And then, okay. So once I've got my 4 roads going into an intersection, you can actually see it's changed there. So we've got our intersection in there, and we can see it's sort of designed for standard passenger car. It's a standard intersection crossroads there. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the intersection, but we can see I can make a few changes, and I can do it for a small truck going around, and the curb lines will update. But if I wanted to then just we can have a quick look at the traffic simulation here. Let's have a look at this area. Try and avoid some of those additional roads. Sometimes when you bring in, when you create something in Model Builder, some paths might actually come in as roads. So I'll just pick this smaller area here. And I've got my traffic panel here, so alright, I might just run my simulation, but that might take a bit of time off in the background. So sometimes when you wish you, there we go. Here's one I made earlier. Okay. Alright, okay. I think there's something wrong with my internet connection. Anyway, so if we were to look at that, then the traffic simulation, which you've probably seen before on some other presentations, you would get sort of large build-up of traffic. They'd be going there and waiting, and like I said, because this is the centre of town and it's a busy intersection, then we're going to get a lot of traffic building up here. So we're going to be looking at converting that to a roundabout. So you do that over here, just just in the menu on the right-hand side. We can just select either from there, or we can right-click on the intersection itself, and we can select Convert to Roundabout, and it's as simple as that. So, pulled in the roundabout here, it's done to particular design standard, so it's done it to the FHWA 2010, which is the US design standard. It's just defaulted to a rural double lane, which doesn't really quite fit the roads. So we'll stick to 2010 and we'll see urban single lane roundabout. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. So we can just adjust the island diameter there. And we can sort of shrink the apron width a little bit. And maybe even just pick up the roundabout and adjust it off to the sides to try and avoid that building. So we can see there's a lot you can do here to at least get your initial concept of that roundabout into your design. So there we know that that type of roundabout fits. I mean, I could also switch possibly to a mini roundabout, especially if it's in town. We could go to something a little bit smaller, but maybe that could be at the entrance of the shopping centre rather than as a main intersection here. I'm not entirely sure if that would be suitable, but that has all the grips you can play about with as well. So I think I'm going to stick with the single lane roundabout option. And we can see there, oh, that was probably a bit quick actually. Right. So what we can do, if I'm looking down from the top here, we've got a grip to adjust the apron width, I've got a grip to adjust the centre island, and one from the ICD on the side, and I can also move it around. But if I drop the elevation and I look at it from the side, now is when I can adjust the vertical geometry. So we can go into here and we've got one to adjust the tilted plane. I can also adjust the bearing of the tilted plane, and I can adjust the center elevation. So I can actually raise up my roundabout, I can drop it into the ground depending on what's required. So maybe I'll just raise it up a little bit here, and then I'll adjust that tilted plane. It goes to about plus or minus 10%. And then we can adjust exactly where that is directed to. And you'll see the terrain updates automatically for that. Now, so as I said before, it's not just US design standards that are within InfraWorks. So if we can click over here and we can go to the model properties, under the design standards here at the bottom, I can actually change it to AASHTO Imperial because we're on metric at the moment, but I could swap it over to DMRB metric as well, and I can make us drive on the correct side of the road also. So, and if I were to click on that, it might take a little bit of a while, and it would actually regenerate the whole model and change all the intersections. So I'm not actually going to click on that now because it might freeze up the computer for a little bit. But then when you go to editing the roundabout, then the design standards that you would actually have here would be the DMIB metric UK standards. Okay, so now I'm going to export this. So once again, you can, like I'm saying, I'm not going to do it. I think there's something up with my internet connection. It's not connecting properly. So you could do another traffic simulation on the roundabout itself, and it would work. and you would notice that because it allows, as soon as the traffic car approaches, it can go through if it's clear, and therefore it would certainly speed up the traffic flow through that intersection. But to do the proper analysis, we need to pull that into Civil 3D. So we're going to do that. I'm going to do that this time by using export IMX. So there's a few different ways of doing this. You can just you can shut down this model. So I can shut down this model. I can just open up here. I can just go into Civil 3D. I can select InfraWorks. Now you have to shut down the model because it's a sort of SQL database in the back end, and you can't have the database being pulled by two programs at the same time like that. It gets a bit confused. So we've got the insert, and all you do is click on Insert, Open InfraWorks Model, and you just select the SQL file for that, assign the coordinate system, and then you can click on Area of Interest, for example, and then if you had an area of interest, then you would simply get what you're going to see in a minute, a bounding box that you can just define exactly where you want to bring in. You can have it as large or as small as you like, and it would just pull in that area and all the data that you've selected to bring it in. So it will bring in some of the building floor plans and things like that. But Nigel wants a IMX file, so this is a different way of doing it. And I'll take a bounding box, can pull in an area that size, happy with my coordinate system, target file, and I'll just export. And it's as easy as that. So, okay, so now I'm just going to hand it back over to Nigel, and he can continue. You ready, Nigel?
Yep, send it over to me. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I have a slightly different IMX file that was prepared earlier because we're not actually sitting in the same office at the moment. But I have just opened a brand new clean drawing, and I'm going to use the same command that Mark was showing you, but I'm going to change it to select IMX file type, click on the IMX and hit open. Change my coordinate system to match the one in the file and just open model. And a few seconds later it's going to import an area around the roundabout that Mark had, and it's going to create us a roundabout, the roads, and bring some of the buildings in. So bear with me a second, it's just regenerating the model, and there you have it. The same roundabout Mark had. There's the roundabout object I'm hovering over, and it's brought in around a vehicle tracking. Well, it's a civil stroke vehicle tracking roundabout object, and it has created a corridor because it had a surface. So it's produced the night and day cut and fill and a complete corridor. The first thing I'm going to make a point of here is, for most of this talk, I'm only going to be using tools that are in Civil 3D 2017. So it's a dynamic roundabout. If I move the roundabout and position it somewhere else, the roundabout will update. Linked signs, it's placed some signage around the roundabout based on rules, and the corridor updates. Every edit you change will automatically recalculate the corridor and update everything. It is a totally dynamic object. When you select the roundabout, you will notice that you will get a roundabout panel on the toolbar, which has got some controls to change the roundabout. If I do roundabout properties, the general tab tells me that this is a 2010 mini roundabout, because that is what came in from the standard that was used in InfraWorks. As Mark said, InfraWorks, we only have US roundabout design standards out the box and British roundabout design standards. But in vehicle tracking and in civil, we ship with 14 other countries, and we also ship, if they're not included in those, two generic roundabout types, dual and single lane. These roundabout standards are fairly good. We haven't got things like the French roundabout standards, as someone's asked. French roundabout rules are slightly different, and we're currently looking into how we can extend the model to cover areas like France. But at the moment, all the standards here, we are producing relatively good roundabouts for those standards.
However, Nigel, to answer Philippe's question about the French roundabout standard, so while we have replaced the traditional Civil 3D roundabout design tool, which was specifically created for the French market, it is still available as a command line option in there. So we haven't actually removed your ability to continue designing roundabouts how it used to be, but so you can still carry on with your existing workflows until we update the vehicle tracking engine to cope with those additional rules that are applicable to France.
Okay, so I could quite happily here change this roundabout to a British compact roundabout, and if I apply the change, it confirm that I want to actually do the change, it will go off and recalculate the roundabout, and I now have a British designed roundabout. Okay, so for those of you in America, one of the things that vehicle tracking does on the roundabout is it calculates your R1 to 5 values. These are key radii used for analysing and specifying roundabouts. We also calculate the fastest line. This is the fastest speed a vehicle can go through the roundabout based on some of the geometry. It's a racing line through the roundabout. And we calculate that for each of the arms, and we calculate the overall speed. So at the moment this is a bit of a messy drawing. I'm just going to switch to a slightly clearer version of the same drawing, so I can just show you a couple of other things that we're calculating. If I switch the corridor off at the moment and reselect the roundabout, we calculate visibility displays. So this is the yield or stop line visibility display for a car. We calculate, so roundabouts generally for each arm have 3 or 4 visibility displays. So the typical ones are the oncoming traffic visibility display based on the speed of the road, the visibility display to a given crosswalk or crossing for the next arm, so you can't join the roundabout and hit pedestrians crossing if you take the next exit, and roundabout visibility displays. So typically some of the standards define up to 15 visibility displays, so you can just with the tools toggle around each of the ones that are defined for the roundabout. We also place the signage where it's required by the standard, but if you don't like the sign location that we define, you can move the sign. When you update the roundabout, if I move the roundabout, it will remember that you've moved that sign further away from the yield line, and it will maintain the change, but of course it will reflect the new geometry that it's measuring off. In InfraWorks, we only provide you with the editing tools to change the center location, the apron diameter, the ICD, and a few other things. Here you can see that we have grips to adjust the near side radius, the splitter size, the deflection. So one of the things that roundabouts have is deflection. Deflection is used to adjust the speed that vehicles merge onto the roundabout. and here I'm just changing the deflection, and as you can see it's updating in real time the speed for this arm. So as you adjust it, the speeds and the radius values are changing dynamically, and you can see the effect of the adjustment in real time. And of course, as soon as you update it, it will go off, it will recalculate all the alignments, it will recalculate all the profiles, and it will recalculate the corridor. You can adjust the splitter size, and if you want, you can, it says, I'm just trying to find it, can't find the add islands. You can add splitter islands, which again, once selected, we put a large number of grips so you can adjust a vast amount of the values on the splitter island. And again, you can add a crosswalk, and those crosswalks, this particular standard states that the crosswalk goes straight the way across the island, but you can have refuges in the islands, and you can have straight across, or you can have parallel, as in this case, to the island. So there's quite a few controls and ways you can define the crosswalk. We also support things like speed striping, which is putting striping on the road just to indicate to drivers that they're coming up to a yield line. And again, we could do the similar thing with rumble strips. We have a vast amount of settings that you can do on the roundabout. So up until now, all I have done is used tools that are freely available in Civil 3D 2017. The next sort of analysis we can have is if you've got full vehicle tracking installed and you drive a vehicle. I have here just a general, I think it's WV52 Arctic. It's one of the American Arctics. You can see as I move over the road, the vehicle will snap to the road, and then as you drive it round, if I drive it off the roundabout, it will just assume that I want to drive off the side of the road. If I drive into a roundabout, the path gets produced going around the roundabout. But again, it's a dynamic, let it just finish updating. It's a dynamic path. So if I then go and edit the roundabout, when I decide to finish, the path updated and recalculated based on a new route through the roundabout. So the whole model is a BIM model. Everything links together and updates. You can progressively increase the level of detail. You can add swept paths for multiple routes through, and they will all update. As soon as you've finished editing the roundabout, they will update. The same applies to the corridor. So that's basically vehicle tracking, talking to the roundabout, and the roundabouts in Civil 3D. We had one question earlier about where is the tool for creating a roundabout in Civil. I just quickly want to show you that. If you go to here, Home, Intersections, Create Roundabout, that's how you create a roundabout in Civil. And it will then prompt you to create a roundabout, and then you can add the arms to it. Okay, I think I was going to demonstrate linking to Arcady. I currently haven't got a working version of Arcady on this machine, and I didn't want to upset the machine by using it. But if you're not using Arcady but are using Rodel, which is a very common similar system to Arcady, if you go to Roundabout Properties and you go to an arm and go to the analysis, This screen here gives you the inputs that are needed for both Arcady and Rodel for doing traffic analysis and level of service analysis on a roundabout. Okay, I think I've finished. Is there any questions, Mark, that have come up?
Yeah, there's a few questions on here. I can take a few, and you might be able to help out with the other ones. There was someone saying they can see some vehicle tracking folders installed on Civil 3D, but they don't have it as a menu option. So am I right in thinking that the folders that are installed are simply only to do with the Roundabout design standards, and that it gets, yeah, it's just the Roundabout tool. It's not the rest of vehicle tracking. So the ribbon comes up when you import a Roundabout from.
Is the Civil 3D ribbon.
Is the Civil 3D, yeah.
If you install full vehicle tracking, you will get the vehicle tracking ribbon. And if you use any of the vehicle tracking tools like pacing, parking rows, or driving a vehicle, it will take a vehicle tracking license or require a vehicle tracking license. But if you're solely working in roundabouts, 99% of the functionality that for vehicle tracking roundabouts is there included in Civil.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, the recording of the webinar will go online just like all the other ones. So yeah, if your connection was a bit slow and you didn't keep up with this, or you wanted to watch something again, then you can watch it on the community pages. French one we've done. The principal difference between traffic and mobility simulation. So the traffic simulation is pretty much what it said. It's to do with modeling, it's microsimulation of traffic through the road networks, but the mobility simulation takes into account pedestrian movements also, and it can do sort of material movements around construction sites and industrial yards and things like that. So it's sort of separated, one just for looking at vehicle movements, and two looking at movements of other objects and people around and how they interact.
Yeah, so for the pedestrian, you can do a bus coming up to a train station and have the passengers getting off the bus, and similarly you could have a train coming up to the train station and all the passengers getting off, and it will simulate that sort of movement as well.
Yeah, okay. Is there a function for including things like buildings that affect the line of sight on the roundabout? So, yeah.
At the moment, you need to do a visual check against the hash lines produced by the tool.
Yeah, yeah, you can't actually do any of the sort of the line of sight with the vehicle tracking software to actually get it sort of dynamically interacting with the buildings, but Eric might be able to confirm this one. But if you use the other technique of importing the InfraWorks model, like I was showing you, you go to import InfraWorks model, and so you had two options. So there was import InfraWorks model, and then just below that you had some configuration settings. So in there you can choose which objects you actually bring in through from the InfraWorks model. So you can, so buildings would be like a tick box in there, so you can either choose to bring them in or not. So it helps you sort of clean up your drawing or only bring through what you want. So yeah, I believe in there, if you use the other technique rather than exporting and importing an IMX, then you would be able to get those buildings through as well.
Yeah. But you'd have to do a visual check.
Yeah, yeah. You wouldn't be able to do anything with it, but yeah, it would be a visual check for the sightlines.
Just to chime in, you may be able to do that check in the InfraWorks model also. So take a look at the buildings are 3D masked objects in there, so you could do a sight distance check in there and see how you're making out.
Yeah, yeah, of course. of course. So, anymore. Can we use in Roundabout vehicle tracking for UK? Yeah, I think we covered that. There's some slightly longer questions in here, Eric, near the end.
Yeah, I see that. I see that one of them has to do with someone who's new to InfraWorks, and they're asking, what's the difference between InfraWorks and AutoCAD or Civil 3D? And they're really completely different. The platform is completely different. AutoCAD and Civil 3D are a CAD platform that is, it's kind of its default state is 2D, so you're looking at things in plan view. And it's more colored lines on a black screen or on a white screen, whereas InfraWorks 360 is an all 3D all the time environment. There really is no plan view, and you're always in a very realistic rendered environment, as opposed to kind of what you're seeing on your screen now, which is colored lines on a black screen. Most people, if you went out on the street and showed this image to people, they wouldn't know what they were looking at. But if you showed the same roundabout in InfraWorks 360, they would say, yeah, that's a roundabout. I've seen those before, or they at least identify it as a road. So I think that's the fundamental difference, is the environment that you work within in InfraWorks is very real and much more visual as opposed to an AutoCAD-based product. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I see. There's another question in here. I don't know if some people are getting a bit confused here. It says, or it might be just a question related to vehicle tracking. But for a start, it's like what you saw now. It's using the vehicle tracking engine in the background. But if you're bringing a roundabout in from InfraWorks into Civil 3D, if you've got Civil 3D 2017, you don't need vehicle tracking installed in there to actually be doing that transfer. It's built in. It's the roundabout tool is now in Civil 3D as well, so that's what's helping it talk. But if you do have any vehicle tracking, which coming to the question, if you do have a vehicle tracking objects, so I'm assuming we've got this roundabout, and yeah, it might look like a vehicle tracking roundabout, but if you send that to somebody else with Civil 3D 2017, then they will be able to see it as a dynamic roundabout and still edit it. So you wouldn't need to explode it or anything like that. But if you're sending vehicle tracking objects or this type of roundabout to somebody, well, first of all, if you're sending a vehicle tracking object to somebody else who hasn't got vehicle tracking, then either you'll have to explode it, or we do have an object enabler for that. Now, Nigel, could you say if we sent this roundabout that's in Civil 3D here, 2017, to somebody with Civil 3D 2016, how would it look to them? I'm assuming it wouldn't be dynamic.
It would come across as a proxy object the same way the Civil 3D 2017 corridors would come across in 16 as a proxy object.
Okay.
If anyone who's got Civil 3D AutoCAD 2017 who has installed the Civil 3D object enabler, it will come across as a normal non-editable vehicle tracking object, but not a proxy. So it talks nicely with Civil 3D and AutoCAD 2017.
Yeah.
It's only if you go to an earlier version that you'll get proxy objects.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Civil 3D 2017 knows about all the vehicle tracking objects properly, so they're not treated as proxy objects at all.
Okay.
And Mark, while we're on the topic of compatibility, I saw another one just pop in there. I don't know if you want to take a shot at that one.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that I mean, alignment is an alignment. All we've done is so yeah. The question is, can you take a roundabout made in 2016 or alignments made from 2016 and make a roundabout on them, or do you need to have a 2017 set of alignments?
Right. I'll answer that one.
Right. Yeah.
Vehicle tracking requires a center line alignment for the road or an offset center line alignment for the road, but that alignment could be a 2D polyline, could be a line, could be an arc, could be a civil 3D alignment with profile. It will accept most linear geometry, so a line, a polyline, 3D polyline, or I think it will do a feature line. I can't remember for definite if it will do a feature line, but it will definitely take a civil 3D alignment. So if you're working in AutoCAD, it will just take a 2DP line.
Yeah.
Great. I appreciate you guys. Go ahead, Mark.
No, there's just one last question we skipped there. It was, is the roundabout in vehicle tracking more accurate than civil 3D roundabout command? So I don't know if Giovanni there was referencing the old roundabouts design tool within Civil 3D, but certainly vehicle tracking compared to what's in Civil 3D 2017, like I said, it's the exact same engine that's doing it, so it would give you the exact same roundabout. Comparing this to the previous incarnations of it, I mean, it was primarily differently due to the user interface on how you built the roundabout in the first place, but I mean it's still to the same design standard, so if you were using it properly, then it should come out pretty much the same. There were a couple of things in there that it did, I believe, that vehicle tracking can't do. So
at the moment, some of the geometry that the old civil tool has is based on the French rules, which we're not yet supporting, but we will be.
Yeah. Okay, and
Sidra, not at the moment. Sidra requires very little of the geometry actually, so you can see all the geometry you need to enter the data into Sidra, but there's no direct link. So Sidra basically needs, from memory, it needs the lanes and the ICD and a couple of other values, all of which are calculated or visible. Okay, I think we're going to hand back to Eric because we're very close to coming up to the hour.
Okay, great. I do see one more question I'll answer about once the roundabout is revised in Civil 3D, how do you add it back to your InfraWorks 360 model? There is a command in the or a function in the data sources panel that will let you add a Civil 3D drawing, and you would use that tool to bring that roundabout back in. So we are about out of time, so let me just...
There's one last one that just came up. It's just a quick one. Can you edit the assemblies for the roundabout? So yeah.
Yes and no. We use fixed assemblies when we create the baselines in the corridor, but once they're created you can go and change them manually yourself.
Effectively, the tool hasn't done anything new, it's just sort of sped up the process. So everything in there is still your standard Civil 3D objects that you can just use and edit. It's just that we've got some extra functionality in there to help bring it in and help have some of that dynamic movement around the object itself. But everything in there, you can still edit it in the traditional way. You can go in there and play about with the assemblies as much as you like.
Great. Well, you guys did an awesome job on your presentations and also answering so many questions. I think we have had more questions and answers than we've maybe had in any of the webcasts prior, so great job on that front. I just want to remind everyone our next webcast is coming up on July 13th. We'll be talking about collaboration without using the cloud, so if you're interested in that topic, if that's something you've run up against in your office or with your clients, this will be a great way to learn about all the collaboration capabilities that you can take advantage of in Civil 3D and InfraWorks without having to use the cloud. So we hope to see everyone that's here. We hope to see you at that webcast and bring some friends as well. With that, I'll thank Nigel and Mark one more time and congratulate you guys on a great presentation. Thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks guys.